Goodman. Well, this is what I like to do. I like to keep it loose, because this is really what music is about, right? It's about having these moments.
No, nobody told me. I don't know what's supposed to be here.
Well, we're supposed to keep it loose. Just told us.
Hey, we're keeping it loose. We're keeping it loose here. So these are three legendary music business journalists. Like I said, it's a little bit intimidating for me to be up here because I watch these guys at different levels on MTV. Still listen to them on Sirius XM. And Mark, I want to talk about this because I know you were a radio DJ before MTV, and all you guys have been involved in radio. What do you think the difference between a successful radio man is and one who is successful on MTV? Let's talk about that cultural shift, because you were right there in the heart of it at the very beginning.
I think the great thing about MTV was it just allowed bands that needed to be seen to be understood get seen. You know, people needed another avenue in. So I think that was the best thing about it. But you're asking like a difference between a band that got famous on the radio or that made it through MTV?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
MTV had this other magical power, I think. I mean, these guys were responsible for really introducing bands that fucking blew up. I mean, it went crazier than ever that you would just get a hit on radio.
Right.
I mean, that's as close as I can get.
Well, image became a thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a visual component, but there's always been a visual component to music. There always has been. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm curious, Riki, I'll go with you, because you're in the club.
Yeah, like, this whole thing is a little bit surreal because to this day, when somebody says MTV VJs, I think of these guys, like I've never thought of myself as an MTV VJ.
Right.
And I didn't go, I mean, I honestly, my first time ever with a microphone or anything was on MTV. I didn't come from radio, I didn't come from television. I came from having like a really cool rock club in Hollywood called the Cat House. That was my background. So it's like, oh, they're having VJs. Oh, there must be an empty seat. They want me to sit up there too.
Well, explain to these guys how you got that gig. It's a cool story.
What, the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those who you know stories. Like, these guys probably all got their gigs from having talent. I got my gig because Axl Rose asked MTV if they wanted to bring me in for a VJ. And then Axl's like, hey, do you want to go try to be a VJ on MTV? I'm like, okay. He's like, do you want me to come to New York with you? I'm like, okay. So that was the first time I ever flew business class, and we stayed up in New York, and everybody knew, you know, like, look, I got my job because Axl Rose helped me get my job. Okay. You know, and when I see early episodes of Headbangers Ball, I'm the first to tell you, I was horrible. Like, if I was a kid, I would hate me. And after a while, you know, I got more comfortable, and now I'm working in radio. I am the only person on MTV, not on Sirius XM though. But now,
Our bad, man. Sorry. It's our bad. For
but
sure.
it's, you know, now I look at all of this stuff, and it's just so cool. It's like, wow, I was a part of MTV, and although we long for that time, I feel so honored to be up here with like your VJs and to be part of that family, because it was cool. And I know for a fact, if you liked hard rock or heavy metal, I had the #1 greatest job in the world. So everybody hated me and could do better, but it was awesome.
Dude, I'll tell you something. There is another VJ who got his gig because he was recommended by someone already famous. J.J. Jackson was recommended for this job by Brian May from Queen. Yeah. J.J. was a huge Queen fan. He was friends with Freddie. He was friends with Brian. And Brian called up the president, Bob Pittman. You should think about this guy. And they couldn't find him. They couldn't find J.J. Jackson. They went to radio stations all over the country looking for him, and ultimately found the man. Good job, though. Yeah, I agree with you. Best job in the fucking world.
Absolutely, right? It was certainly the best job in the world. I mean, it was incredible. Coming from a background in radio and DJing in rock clubs for quite a few years, you know, and because of the market that I grew up in, which is between New York and Philly. Now, Mark was in Philly radio, but it was really hard at that point to break in because, you know, the closest market to me was New York City. And people that were in New York City on the radio, they didn't want to leave their gigs. It was people didn't come and go. When they got there, they wanted to stay.
That's right.
So I, started at a New Jersey radio rock station on the Jersey Shore, a rock alternative station that was a hybrid of rock and alternative music, and it was, and that's how eventually, by driving through snowstorms and doing all the shifts nobody wanted, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't want to work New Year's Eve? I'll do it, And I did break down on the highway before cell phones with a can of gas in the snowstorm, like 3 feet of snow, and walked 4 miles in sneakers and like a denim jacket. I will regret that forever. But I'm just grateful. I think it doesn't matter how you got there. I think the great thing is it's what you did when you got there. That's why Riki was so great, and Mark was so great.
Matt, when did you take over 120? Who was the host before you?
Dave Kendall, right?
Was it?
Yeah. Why are you asking me?
No, I was asking.
Well, it's a really interesting thing because I started filling in there in '93. But the honest thing is, the first times I appeared on the channel, Dave Kendall was interviewing me on the street outside a show, and I was pretty hammered, but he was like interviewing people outside like a Robin Hitchcock show. And then also, oddly enough, I'm in for like 30 seconds the first season of Real World by accident because the guy who was in a band called Andre, who used to come hear me spin at this nightclub, this rock club, and he goes, "Hey man, I have a band and I'm on this new TV show called Real World. Is it cool if we come with our cameras down to the radio station and like you interview us?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem, man." So of course I forgot about it, and I had like a stained shirt on that day. I didn't shave. I looked like absolute shit, and I'd been probably getting hammered the night before. And that's the first thing people saw of me was in the radio station with him.
And that's why we hired you.
But no, I gotta be honest and say, in '93 I filled in for the first time. What happened was Dave Kendall was, at the time he either left or was let go, whatever it was, and I was very naive. I mean, I was working at a radio station. I would watch you guys. I watched you. I loved watching Riki. So I loved the channel. So I just happened to get a phone call from the guys in MTV who work in the music department, where I ended up working. I ended up becoming a part of the music department, which is programming the videos and picking the videos, which was just a great thing to do because I'd been doing that in radio. I worked my way up to program director, music director at that station on the Jersey Shore. But anyway, so I made this phone call because I saw that Dave Kendall was leaving. It was in a music trade. And I just went, "Hey, Kurt," this guy, Kurt Steffen, who programmed 120, I said, "Hey man, what happened to Dave Kendall?" And he goes, "Oh, I think he got blown out." I go, "I'm sorry to hear that." I go, "Maybe you should have somebody on there too that like, you can do some good interviews with bands that really into music." And he goes to me, "We'll see. I'll see if they think you're in the demo, and I'll call you back in a week." And that's the joke, that see if you're still in the demo, because I ended up on there for quite a few years. But I filled in first in '93. I did an audition. Riki's talking about when he went there, it was the first time he held a microphone. I looked like a deer in headlights at my audition. I went there, I'd never done TV before. I was all cottonmouth. I again, being the worst dresser in the world, I showed up with a t-shirt with a giant rip in it for my audition. This is not a lie. And
then kids all over the country started wearing t-shirts with rips in them.
You were $140.
And shaving their heads.
You were $140, exactly.
So, but I did that in '93, but I didn't take over the show permanently until '95. I got hired to be in the music department, and I thought I left the radio station I was on And I literally thought I was never going to be on the radio or television ever again. I had already decided that I go, look, it's cool. You're going to work behind the scenes. You have a daughter. You're raising a daughter. You know, you had that one time on TV. That's cool. You're going to work behind the scenes now, so you can't work on the radio anymore. And I was okay with that, which was a bit of a bummer. But and then a few months later, they go, hey, you were pretty good that time. We're going to give you 3 weeks and see how it goes. And then that night I did an interview and they said, the show is yours. So the first time. So, and the rest is history. But you know, it's watching.
How many people were turned on to a band by 120 minutes? How about Headbangers?
That's your
That's
crowd.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So Ricky, you were a kind of stand-in at first too before it was permanent. Is that right?
I was a what?
You were temporary before it was permanent.
Well, what they would do is, I owned clubs back then, and one of my clubs, Bordello, they had me be the guy, the LA reporter, with Adam Curry being the host of Headbangers Ball. So Adam would say like, and now we go to our man in the streets in Hollywood, Riki Rachtman. And you can sort of tell that Adam's sort of kind of like, oh, now it's Riki Rachtman.
No. That was just the way Adam talked.
But I do want to say that, I've only met Adam a couple times, and he was always like a really nice guy. And I think he kind of created the podcast or something like that.
He's the podfather.
So he's doing really good. But you know, he was like a VJ. Kind of real funny little side note. My roommate at the time sang in a band called Faster Pussycat, and Tammy was a guest on Headbangers Ball. And Tammy goes, "They want to give a shout out to my roommate Ricky, probably just hearing his name on MTV." And that was like me just watching Headbangers Ball while Tammy was on it. But yeah, I was like the man to do like the reports while Adam was still hosting the show. And then eventually they brought me to New York to audition. I was horrible. And then they gave me the job, and it was still horrible for a little bit. We got a little bit better, and it was sort of like that.
Well, something that I think that all three of you guys share is that you really were all the men on the street. Like Mark, there's a famous video of you and David Bowie that people see when David Bowie's talking about, why are you not playing black music? That's what it's about. But something I think people miss is that you talk about actually answering phone calls from listeners and being connected like that. Now, Ricky's there, Matt is there, connected in a different way. Let's talk about that connection. Was it difficult to keep that connection with listeners when you were on a nationally broadcast show?
I feel like that's something that MTV had to fight. I mean, if people say we went up against radio to begin with, the advantage of radio is the radio was always local at that time. And we weren't. So we did everything we could to try and, you know, fake things like that would make us feel local, you know.
Yeah. Talk about like the push and the pull though, because sometimes like Matt is like a guy who's on the street, right? He knows what's happening and that drives maybe radio, but it feels like if someone were on MTV, that was also driving radio.
There's no question that, especially in the 80s, I would venture to say probably into the 90s, that MTV drove what radio had. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I mean,
but in a good way. I mean, I don't, you know, people were pitting radio against MTV in the beginning, and, you know, behind the scenes we were. But ultimately, radio understood how to work with MTV and wound up benefiting from it in that way, by adding the right records and, you know, getting visibility through MTV.
I mean, exactly, because, you know, I mean, bands like Metallica, there were programmers that were resistant to Metallica until, you know, they weren't playing Master of Puppets or anything off Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. But when the One video came out, it forced radio to recognize Metallica as a new force. And it did that with a lot of things. The same thing would be true with Headbangers Ball and with Guns N' Roses. And the thing is that it was MTV that really drove those artists and pushed them to a new level and over the top. We could see it happening, you know? And even though I came into the music department in the 90s, it was the same thing with bands like Soundgarden, who've been around for a while, but all of a sudden we're getting the exposure. I'm just using them as an example, or else a chance. But it was one of those situations where, yeah, MTV, I always said that it was the biggest top 40 station in the world. And what I meant by that was, it's like, because its reach was so huge. And I don't just mean top 40, I meant hip hop, I meant MTV Raps, Headbangers Ball, 120 Minutes, All Nation, whatever is being played there. Because MTV at that period of time was driving pop culture and rock culture in such an incredibly big way, it was very, very influential.
There was all different kinds of stuff being played. That's why it was sort of top 40-ish.
That's what
Top 40 is like, great song is great song, play it.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, the way top 40 used to be, right? Yeah.
Right.
when they used to play some guitars.
Where are the guitars, man? The guitars are in fucking Nashville, man. That's where the guitars are.
So if somebody wasn't marketable via video, did they still have a chance during that time, do you think, as being a musician?
Well, of course, because they're still touring, you know, and there's still radio. But the reason that within a year after us launching, every band that was signed, that got a record deal, made a video clause, you know, cash set aside to do one video or two videos, whatever it was, because it was that important. And I mean, it's a no-brainer. For God's sake, you're going to do 3.5 minutes that's going to be a commercial for your band that will be played, if you're lucky, 8 times a day. So that's what the film companies realized, that's for sure.
Mark, we were joking around about being just kind of loose up here on stage, and I remember watching those early days of MTV. I felt it was pretty loose. I remember giving away like Bon Jovi's house. Do you remember that promotion?
We gave away his house?
The house he grew up in.
Remember that? I have no memory of that.
Yeah, I wasn't there yet, but it was definitely done, yeah.
Yeah. So
I know about the pink house. That I know.
John Cooper.
John Mellencamp?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so that sounds like a story.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. We gave away the house, and the big promo was Mellencamp on the air going, yeah, we're going to give you this house. It's in Bloomington, Indiana. You get it for free. And, you know, and then when you'll come out and we'll paint the mother pink, is the big line. We did it. We gave away the house. And then we realized, fuck, it's on a toxic landfill. Swear to God. So, quickly, you never saw that on music news, though. It was never.
So it seemed like that was kind of the attitude though, like we'll figure it out as we go, because you guys were really, it was a brand new thing at the time to have like this youth-oriented network. It's almost like youth-oriented culture from rock and roll, but in a different level.
In the really early days, we were just trying to figure out what we could do that would be larger than life. So give away a house.
Yeah.
You know, let somebody be a roadie with Van Halen. You know, like that just crazy shit that you could never imagine happening to yourself. That was the kind of stuff that.
All right, I want to dig into some more of these stories. Ricky, I know you got to have something like that.
I forgot everything that happened in
Hey, Rick, I meant to ask you, Class Action Park, did you see your footage in that?
Oh yeah, that was that. I mean, people asked me quite a bit. They were like, what was your favorite episode of Headbangers Ball? And some of them are, you know, the Nirvana episode always comes back to haunt me. But without a doubt, the most asked about episode of Headbangers Ball also was the most fun episode of Headbangers Ball. And that was with Alice in Chains at the water park, which ended up getting shown again in the movie Class Action Park. Now when we went to, which if you don't know, it's a documentary that's definitely worth watching, about a water park that like injured people and maybe killed people. It was dangerous. And they let myself and Alice in Chains go to the water park and do whatever we want. And I remember sitting on a chairlift with Jerry Cantrell, we're going up, and there was a water slide that did a loop, and it was closed, and I remember sitting there and saying, isn't a water slide that does a loop dangerous? They go,
really bad.
Well, it's closed now because somebody went up halfway and fell down and broke their nose. But we did it, and we did all this crazy stuff, and it wasn't like, especially with Headbangers Ball, because you know, I kind of did whatever I wanted to do, and then you put me with a bunch of metal bands, you can't really script stuff out, because everybody's going to do whatever the hell they want. So if Alice in Chains and myself are taking over a water park, we're gonna take over a water park. If you're gonna let me loose in Texas with Pantera, we're gonna go crazy. And the beauty is that because, you know, I'm just some bum from Hollywood, and even the bands that sold a lot of records, we were just like, whatever. And they're like, okay, you're gonna go play basketball with Anthrax at Boston Garden. You're gonna go kick a football with the Dallas Cowboys played. You're gonna go to the Castle Neuschwanstein with Danzig. And I'm like laughing, I'm like, I get to do the most incredible things with these bands that are also getting to do like pretty cool, you know, skydiving with Dave Mustaine, whatever it is. And it was just kind of
that
like,
happen?
What?
Skydiving with Dave
A lot
Mustaine?
of times. A lot of times. I didn't let him pack my chute. If you saw the show, you know why. But afterwards, Dave and I started skydiving more regularly. But we would do, and I remember them saying like, Ricky, would you go skydiving with Dave Mustaine? I go, okay. And then we would do it, and we would just do all this crazy stuff. And I mean, again, it's talking about having the greatest job. MTV would do contests that were, I don't want to say youth energized, but it was kind of like, let's see if we can do this. And then because MTV is so huge, they got the budget, they're like, holy crap, we're going to actually get to do this. So there was some pretty amazing, I mean, I got to go all over the world because of MTV, you know, so it was incredible.
There were those, like Ricky's talking about, there's promotions, they don't, obviously, once things started to, you know, go in a different way with the record companies, they stopped doing things like that. But one of those promotions was like what we did with Metallica for, we called it the Mother Load, and it was basically sending 3 tractor trailers out with a Jeep inside of it, gold records, equipment, all of this other stuff, and literally, I remember me and this VJ John Sensio, we were on in San Francisco, like on an abandoned, like Navy airstrip or something, and the 3 tractor trailers were there, and this trivia had built up. You had to know Metallica trivia for a while, and then they picked 3 people, and they sent them out to 3 different locations and just tracked these 3 tractor trailers. But once they knew that the winner was going to be the one in Aberdeen, Washington, I flew up there, and that was the town that Kurt Cobain was actually lived in and was born there. But it was such a small town, it was a little logging town, and the only thing there was a Walmart. When I got there, at a diner, the sheriff asked me, he goes, hey man, you want Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic mug shots? I got copies of them for you. So I said, sure, and I'll take them. Yeah, so I did, so they're somewhere in storage. But anyway, because when they were like, you know, pimply-faced teenagers, and they got in trouble for like drawing Scooby-Doo having sex with Shaggy on some wall, got busted for it. And so, literally, you know, I met Metallica, I was there, but I had to hide in my hotel room because there wasn't much going on in the town of Aberdeen, but this kid won the contest, so I met Metallica about 20 minutes outside of the town and jumped in, and they flew in and drove up. We jumped in the back of a tractor trailer. We tried to shoot some stuff with flashlights. It didn't really come out, but we pulled up into this guy's house and opened the back of the thing, and then I jumped out of there with the 4 guys in Metallica. And then you saw the other people that didn't get it. They were crying because they wanted really. Meanwhile, they got a Jeep and like 500 other things, but they were such big Metallica fans. But it was a great time. Like Ricky's saying, those promotions were just unbelievable. We ended up playing basketball with the kids that won. Metallica played in a little bar and let the kid come up and sing a song from Kill 'Em All with them. I mean, the bar was the size less than where those curtains are. It was promotions like that were just so cool, and those were some of the really magical things that we got to do, but that were also great for viewers. I mean, they were really important for people that were fans, you know?
And you felt connected to it, like you could win it, like it was a possibility. I don't know if people feel that way today when they watch MTV. It seems like there's a disconnection.
Wait, are people watching MTV today?